Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the AAS YouTube channel. And this one is on the AAS Scientific Editor Series. And I'm very happy to have Fabian Walter with us today. Hey, Fabian.
Hey, Frank, how's it going?
Good. What's your geolocation?
Oh, I'm right now in Heidelberg, Germany. I mean, due to the lockdown, of course, we can't really travel far these days. Actually on the top of the mountain here at the Institute. So yeah, that's where I am.
Oh, so you're in your work office?
Yep. Actually, this is not my office. This is a trailer because the main building is being renovated right now. So we got little trailers here, containers, which I have tried to decorate so it's not as depressing as sitting in an empty trailer.
Wow, I got all kinds of questions on that. So how many people are in trailers?
Well, we have like 20 trailers now. We could do one level at a time at the main building. So there's like 20 offices being renovated. And of course, we have single occupancy now here in the trailers, right? Because of the whole COVID situation.
Yeah. Was there like some water damage or something, or is this a planned renovation?
This is exactly, 70s building, right? Where things fall apart and, cabling and fire hazards and stuff like that. So there's a major reconstruction. But it's still the same building. It's just cabling. It still takes half a year for this to happen.
Yeah, well, hopefully it'll be much better by the time it's all done there. So
fast internet would be great.
Yeah, hopefully they don't do anything like okay, my right, maybe your left on the mistakes part where we have that poster over there. So hopefully they don't do any of that. So okay, Heidelberg. So Fabian, what do you like to do for research?
So I guess broadly speaking, I'm very much interested in galaxy evolution, and what I do is I look at the interstellar medium in galaxies. So that's atomic gas, molecular gas. So the latter phase is the phase out of which stars form, right? So if you want to understand star formation, you maybe want to look at the molecular gas also. And I started, this in nearby galaxies during my PhD, and then I moved out to higher and higher redshifts with time. So mainly using, millimeter and radio facilities, interferometers for observations. So I should say I'm an observer, not a theoretician. So this is using ERAM facilities, NOEMA, the Very Large Array, and of course, ALMA.
Right. Cool. So I'm always kind of interested how people get into the field that they do. So you mentioned you picked it up as part of your PhD, but how did that happen?
That's interesting that you asked. So, right, I originally was fascinated by quantum mechanics, and I really wanted to do laser physics during my studies. But then I did my master's I was originally studying in Würzburg in Germany, and then I did my master's degree at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, where I had a professor in radio astronomy who introduced me to the Very Large Array.
Yeah. So
just being there, he was a very inspiring professor, and taught me the mysteries of radio interferometry. And all of a sudden, I was sold. I was like, okay, this is much better than what I had in mind. So this is how it all started. Yeah.
Very cool.
It's just hearing, people that change your life.
Very cool. So let's take it on the other end of the time spectrum. So what are some of the current research projects you're looking at now?
Right now, I'm heavily invested in writing proposals for the James Webb Space Telescope, right? So the deadline is actually next week. This has been a long anticipated deadline.
Yes.
So the telescope will launch next year, end of next year, right? So there's a call for the first cycle of observation for the first year, which will presumably happen then in 22 or so. But yeah, so with James Webb, we have completely new opportunities to study distant galaxies, in particular at very high redshift, right? So planning for these observations and coming up with the right spin really takes most of my time right now and over the last couple of months.
Well, good luck.
It's over soon.
Yep. Good luck with the proposal. Hope that works. Somehow, even though I'm a theorist, I'm vaguely involved with one of these. I wouldn't know what to do with JWST time if you gave it to me. But anyway, yeah, I'm familiar with the process going on. So what is your history with the AAS journals?
Right. So yeah. So I guess
Tell me when you started.
My first paper with the WS journals almost 25 years ago. So then I feel really old when I say that, but this is the fact. So this was an AJ paper at the time, and I've actually published with the WS journal ever since. So, when I first really enjoyed working with the AJ was when we had a bigger survey with a very large array that we did in the mid 2000s called the Thing survey, where we looked at 21 centimeter emission in nearby galaxies. So we had like 10 papers coming out. We wanted them at the same time, right? Bundled together in a special edition. Nice. AJ did an amazing job at the time, right? Finding the referees who would provide comments on time and then actually printing. At the time, you would still print. Yes. We got a little special edition, right, with our Things logo and then the 10 papers. Yeah, it's beautiful. It was wonderful. And so, so then that's when I really started to appreciate the journal and what's behind it.
Cool. So when did you become a science editor, and what was some of your motivation for wanting to be a scientific editor?
Right. So I think this was 2013 when I guess one of the editors at the time, who was very strong in radio and millimeter astronomy, left the journal. So there was sort of a vacancy. They needed somebody to fill this role, and I believe there was actually an ad out to which I applied at the time. Mm-hmm. And I got it. So yeah, right. I guess this was about 7 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was still when AJ had an independent.
That is, I think that is right. That was just the transition time, and the reason why I really wanted to do it, right, and why I did apply in the end is to learn new things, and I'm a firm believer in the peer review process, which I really think is key for scientific for the progress and process the progress in general. And so I also had very good experiences over my career with referees and with my own papers, but other papers, appreciating that they usually make the papers much stronger, right? So it's a good and important process. So what I didn't appreciate at the time, of course, is that I would get many papers to oversee that are not necessarily in the specific field that I'm working on, which is also great because I'm forced to learn new things, right, pretty much every day, which I would never think about otherwise. So
yeah, maybe I'll take you back to some of that quantum mechanics from way back when.
Exactly.
So how many roughly how many new submissions do you get per week?
Let me see if I can. Yeah, I would say so. I think I did the numbers some time ago. It was, I think, 200 papers per year. That would make it 4. So 4 papers, 4 new submissions, maybe. Yeah, I think it must be between 3 and 5, sometimes 6 per week. It's on average, I would say it's probably 5-ish or so. Right. I usually have like 70 active papers, manuscripts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So those new ones that come in, what do you think makes for a good, solid initial submission?
Okay, I'm obsessed with paper abstracts. So I'm actually running what we call the abstract clinic here at the MPIA, my home institution.
Oh, cool.
And so, I think it's really important to sort of condense, what you have been working on in an abstract, because let's be realistic here, right? Most people will look at the title, which is also important, obviously. Then they will look at the abstract and then the figures. So I think these are also the things that I check first.
Okay.
So I think this is also the figures, right? Having clear figures that are easily understandable and are, you can tell whether people took great care and pride in preparing figures or not. But the abstract, I would argue, is really important. And if the abstract is too long, I get really upset.
Right. I kind of like to make the analogy that the abstract is like the movie trailer for the movie. right? Because we all see these movie trailers in the theater, and we sort of make a decision whether we want to see the movie or not based on that trailer. And so the abstract kind of plays that same role of enticing people to go a little deeper into the article. And so if you have a really cruddy movie trailer or a really cruddy abstract,
But it's true, right? That in many cases, I know this from some papers I'm co-author on, right? People write a paper and then at the very last moment they say, oh, we also need an abstract, right? And then they write something. And this is really not what one should do. Right? I mean, this needs, you only have so many words, and try to use them wisely.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So the initial submission comes in, you secure the services of a referee, and we'll come back to that in a minute. And so do you have any tips for authors at any point in the process, from initial submission to replying to a referee report to any aspect? So anything you want to tell authors?
I would say, try to submit a complete paper, right? Where you have actually given the chance to all the authors to provide their feedback. And even if you're a native speaker, have somebody else check the language, because, everybody has a different way of saying something. And sometimes it's better to have a second pair of eyes going through the paper and maybe making things a little bit more clear.
Yep.
I mean, the other thing, I guess, you should be patient if the report takes maybe a little longer than you think it should take, right? Because sometimes it actually is just a little more difficult to find a specific referee for your paper. And just try to have a complete manuscript, right? I mean, we have been on papers where, the authors would say, yeah, I know we should include this analysis, but let's do this in the revision process, right? And that's really not the way they should go, because this is usually caught by the referees anyway. It just causes delays and agony, and just try to have a complete thing with one message or maybe a couple messages, and make it easy for the referee.
Yep. And the editor. Okay, how about on the flip side? How about on referees? Do you have any tips or advice for referees or potential referees, or how the peer review process goes with respect to referees?
For potential referees, it's actually interesting that you ask. So, I mean, there are in particular lots of junior folks who ask, how can I become a referee, and how do you select referees, etc. And what really helps me, but I think also others, is if you have a good web page, right, where you actually describe what you have been working on. In particular, right, I mean, people change institutions all the time, right? It's sometimes very hard to track people, because 2 years ago they were in this institution, then you try to Google the names and maybe they're just in some directory that is obsolete, and it's very hard to figure out what is actually, would that referee have, the background and the skills that I'm looking for. So if you just have a web page that sort of summarizes, it doesn't have to be, it can just be one page, right? It doesn't have to be fancy. Just say, these are my research interests. I'm an observer or a theoretician. I'm working on brown dwarfs or on dwarf galaxies, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that would be very, very useful for new incoming, more junior referees. Mm-hmm. So then of course, when we contact referees, we ask, would you mind refereeing a particular paper for us? What is super useful if we get a very quick response, right? If you can't do it as a referee and you just say, no, can't do it, that's fine. You don't need to give any reasons. It just helps us speeding up the process, because then we know, okay, that person is out, and then we can move on to the next referee. Of course, if you have suggestions for other referees one could contact, those are much appreciated, right? Those pieces of advice. But yeah, even if you just say can't do it, just reply no, and that's no hard feelings whatsoever. If you say yes, of course, then we really hope that you then would provide a report within, we usually give folks 3 weeks time, right? If you can't do it in 3 weeks, but you can do it in 4 weeks, because then you just ask, right? Can I get another week? And, I think in most cases, the answer would be yes, of course, right? But, try to be, people should have a good idea of what their schedule looks like for the next 3 weeks, and just, it's be realistic, right? If you think you can do it, and then stick to it. And if you can't do it, just say so. And then, of course, in the report, yeah, just be constructive, right? And try to make the paper a better paper without asking the question of how would I have written this paper, right? Which is sometimes a danger, where you say, but the authors could have also done this, or they really should, that's some fine line to walk here, right? But just try to take it as the author's work, and ask the fundamental question, right? Is this advancing the field? Is this, can I understand what the authors did? And that's great. So no need to do, detailed typos or language rephrasings, stuff like that. You just be constructive. But yeah, I think, the referees are, of course, an integral part to the whole thing. So I usually thank them whenever I can.
Absolutely.
Because without them, the system just collapses.
Right. Right. I think that's actually one of the good value adds about the AAS Journal scientific editors and review processes. Authors and referees know who the scientific editor is. There's active engagement by the scientific editors. It's not like it goes into this black box and you get some mysterious message from someone. It's opaque how it goes. So yeah, I appreciate you thanking referees. I stay with them every step of the way, all the way to the end. So whatever the decision may be. So cool. Let's see. Maybe last question. Do you have anything else you'd like to share about the AAS Journal's editorial process? Anything at all?
Well, maybe a couple things. First of all, the editorial style is really outstanding, right? I mean, the people like Janice, Alex, and Lakshmi, I mean, they're really holding everything together. I mean, both for the authors, the referees, and of course also the editors. It's just incredible what they do behind the scenes. So, but on the bigger scheme, right? I guess, sometimes when I talk to colleagues, they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm writing a paper and then I submit it and then I get a random referee report," right? And this is really not, I mean, that's what they say, right? But this is really not how it works.
Okay.
So if you think about the whole process, and I will admit, right, I wasn't aware of this either so much, right, before I started. I mean, you submit something, right, it goes to the editor-in-chief, right, who has the first screening of the papers, Ethan Wishniak, who then decides, which corridor should this paper go, right? And then this goes to a lead editor, who then also looks at this paper, right? And the lead editor thinks about, which of the scientific editors would be best suited for this particular paper. And then the scientific editor gets the paper. So already the third editor in a way, right? Who then really spends a lot of time thinking about, the potential referee who could actually do a good job with the refereeing. At the same time, right, there's a data software review that is happening. In many cases, we have, the statistician of the AAS journals who looks at papers, particularly the ones that are, relying on proper statistical analysis of the data. And then sometimes we have more than one referee, right? So it's actually it's much more than just you submit and you get a referee report. And then there's now also the data behind the figures, right? And the NOVA page, which is awesome, right? Which highlights some of the results. So there's really a lot of things happening behind the scenes that, where the journals hope to, make the best possible product out of your submission. And this is not usually, it's not always appreciated. Let me put it this way. So I like to talk about that because that's, I think, important that people acknowledge that.
Yeah, I think, at least for me, one of the areas where I put in a significant amount of time is identifying potential referees. That takes...
This is time well spent. It is well spent.
And typically when I get a manuscript, and I do read the manuscript, I do go over it, I will typically identify right up front maybe 5 or 6 potential referees, because you don't know who's available, stuff like that. But yeah, that is one of the larger time areas where I put time into it. So it's not a random referee report by any manner of means.
No.
I mean, there is a little stochasticness as far as who's available when, maybe they have JWST proposals coming up, for example, and they just can't do it or whatever. So there is a little stochastic element to it, but it's not random. I wouldn't call it that.
Exactly. But this is also where, that actually does take time. And this brings me back to my earlier point, right? Where sometimes you get a query by author saying, I submitted my manuscript 3 weeks ago, and I understand the referee only has 3 weeks for their report.
Mhm.
But, quite frankly, it sometimes takes a week, right? To find a referee. Maybe that referee, it takes them 3 days to get back to you and say, I can't do it. Then you need to find somebody else. So, even sometimes 7-8 days is, we're not at the very end of the Gaussian distribution there, right? So just keep that in mind. And then, but the referees are typically very much on time when it comes to providing the report, and that is good. And what I also should say, right? I mean, what I really enjoy greatly is our weekly get-togethers with the other editors, because as you know, right, we get together and we talk about potential issues we were encountering and how we try to solve them, and then you realize that at the end of the day, we all have the same problems, right? And we're facing the same issues, and it's a very loyal and supportive network. So I hope that, of course, this year we didn't have that meeting because of the pandemic, but
In person.
hopefully with the in person, yeah, which is, of course, makes a difference, right?
Makes a difference.
The holding hands kind of experience. No, but I honestly hope that, or hope very much that next year, maybe with the vaccine, we can. Yeah, exactly.
Cross fingers, hope so. Oh, and just to put people at ease, right? So when the scientific editors get together and we discuss cases, their case studies, right? We never ever mention the title of the paper, the author of the paper, the referee. We never discuss the people. It's always about the process, right? What went off the rails on this particular process, or some situation arose, and what is the best way to deal with this situation? So we're not talking about individuals, we're talking about process.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's all I can think of right now.
Okay, cool, great. I think that'll probably do. So I wish your renovation well.
Thank you.
I hope that goes smoothly, and I hope the rest of your 2020 scientific editing process goes smoothly.
Thanks very much, Frank. Appreciate your time.
All righty, thank you so much, Fabian, and
talk to you later.
You on the next one. Bye-bye.